The much anticipated and one of my favorites. He's a legend. And let me just put it to you this way. If you don't have haters, you ain't doing it right. Philly Godfather joins us right now. I love this guy more and more each and every single week because of all the we have up there, man. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. I lead a charmed life, Dan. You know that. Just trying to make some more money this week, give out some more winners and losers, and that's what it comes down to.
Big old smile on you, man. I like it. I brought something up earlier in the program. I watched, damn, that Doug Pederson can coach. Hey, man, he's 5-2. You putting the who wins a Super Bowl? Little Nicky or Doug Pederson? Now, I know Doug's got one already, but who wins the Super Bowl? Doug or Nick?
First?
Yeah.
Doug. That team's trajectory is, he's 8-0 on Thursday nights. They're starting to get their groove. Trevor Lawrence, we were worried about him being banged up, but it looks like he's okay. And they're playing in one of the weaker AFC divisions. So I picked them in at the beginning of the year to win their division, to make the playoffs. I nibbled on them to actually win the Super Bowl at 28-1. But yeah, I think it's Dougie P, man. Everything's going the right way. The plan's coming together for him in Jacksonville.
How about this little dynamic? You know, they've been trying to send that team to London for the last 10 years. Do you realize that they're looking for a brand new stadium? That guy could actually save football in Jacksonville. If that guy just wins, if he wins a Super Bowl, they'll never move that team. It'll be the greatest thing ever happen. Again, it's the Jags. Godfather, it's the Jags. We're not talking about the Eagles culture. We're talking about cellar dwellers.
Yeah, but you're talking about Doug Pederson.
Right.
Think about how many years we suffered in Philadelphia. And as great as Andy Reid is and was, he could never bring us the Super Bowl. So many different coaches along the way. And then here comes Dougie P in 2017 with a backup quarterback. That's how good that team was in the playoffs. Nick Foles, they built statues of both of those guys outside the stadium, and they brought home a Super Bowl. He knows how to win. He knows when to take chances and when not to take chances. Those analytics that everyone's looking at and trying to go by the book like it's the Bible. No, he knows when you use them and when you don't, and that's what's been separating him from all these other guys. So I have complete confidence in Doug P winning the Super Bowl before Sirianni.
I'm watching that game last night, and I'm like, they fired that guy? I mean, you fired that guy because you were undermining him in that 4-win season because you wanted more say. And then you have lesser coaches now than that. Look at Jim Schwartz, what they're doing in Cleveland. And Frank is a head coach in Carolina trying to turn that. I'm telling you, why do you go with lesser people today? It's got to be because Howie doesn't like people with authority in those positions.
Yeah, and you got to remember, as great as Doug P is, he had a lot of great minds around him, and that's what made that 2017 team so special. And when you got really smart people and they're not yes men, sometimes it rubs off management the wrong way. So I think that's what happened in Philly with Dougie P and Roseman. But again, I think he wins the Super Bowl before Sirianni does.
Okay. Reed Blankenship's out now. Dolphins versus Eagles, Sunday Night Football, probably the game of the week. Who wins this thing?
Man, this is going to be a tough one. The Eagles are getting some fresh bodies back. Thank God Lane Johnson is okay. We all know how bad the Eagles play when he's not in the lineup, and he's playing. Jalen Carter's back. Miami has one of the worst pass defenses in football. They've given up the second most points in the AFC behind only the Denver Broncos. But they do put up a lot of points. That Eagles defensive line is healthy. They're going to bring a lot of pressure. Anything below that key number of 3, I'm kind of leaning towards the Eagles here. Money line, 2.5, 2. Tua has been getting rid of the ball. Quickly this year, making all the right decisions. I think he's been getting rid of the ball faster than any other quarterback in the NFL this season. He does have the least amount of sacks, but this is a different kind of rotation on the Eagles defensive line. And even though they have inefficiencies in their backfield, their defensive backs, I'm not sold on them there, but they're bringing so much pressure. I think that'll be the difference in this game. They got a bounce back win off that tough loss against the Jets and Zach Wilson. And, this Eagles team all of a sudden ain't as good as people think they are. They're still a solid squad. It's going to be a tough one. I think the team that has the ball last this week wins the game.
I got 27-20 Dolphins. And the reason I went there is because if you're going to play off the ball 10 yards with Jalen Waddle, and like you said, they're going to probably do this. They're going to go pitch and catch until they come up and press on them wideouts. And then you're going to get a go route. And that guy has been getting behind everybody.
He's going.
And if they don't get home, and I'm talking about Reddick and the two tackles inside, and Josh Sweat too has been picking his game up even more, you're going to have a problem there. And wouldn't you agree to this too? If you're Philly, you want the lead first in this ball game. And you don't want to play from behind in this thing.
No, I don't think they can keep pace if they're playing from behind with this Miami Dolphins team. I mean, they're so electrifying, so explosive on offense. Top 5 in every offensive metric you could think of. And if they're not getting, you're going to know right away. If they're not getting that push with that defensive line, and Tua's got a couple extra blink of an eye to throw the ball, they're in trouble. They got to get that pressure quick, fast, and early, or else they could be in trouble here.
You know what? I think you're right about the fact that and here's what I say about the Dolphins. See, the Eagles, they kind of know the game plan and how to get to the Super Bowl and what it's going to take. The Dolphins are trying to figure this out. And I even said this too. I mean, at the end of the day, the Jets have better wins than what the Dolphins do, and they got a better record. I mean, they've beaten like the Bills and the Eagles, the Jets, with Zach Wilson. Yeah. And those are quality wins. I don't see a quality win with the Dolphins. So this is probably going to tell you more about the Dolphins than it is the Eagles, on Sunday.
Yeah, but then again, give me a quality win the Eagles have this season.
Oh, no, they don't have it. No, they play nobody too.
Right? So, it's kind of hard to gauge going into this game. It's all going to come down to, the trenches, offensive line, defensive lines. As great as the quarterbacks are, as electrifying as the wide receivers are, and all those weapons on the field, whoever wins the trenches in this matchup is going to win the game.
I'm not going to do any longer the shit games like this Raiders-Chicago game. I mean, I could care less about that game. But I do care about this. And I'm not sure if Ms. Watson is quarterbacking for the Browns versus the Colts here in this game. And you got the Gardner Bowl here going on. Shane's done a really nice job. But, I mean, I'm not sure if Ms. Watson's playing. But how do you see this thing? They got a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best defense in the NFL. The 49ers are top 2, top 3 in every offensive metrics. And they made them look bad last week, and they won the game, surprisingly. I had a feeling they were going to cover, but winning that game outright shows you how good that Browns defense is. I don't think the Colts have a chance here. I laid the money line on Cleveland. Anything under a field goal with Cleveland, I think you get the job done. All that Magic Minshew stuff was a couple of years ago. That's going away. This Browns defense is for real, and they're dangerous.
Does Buffalo send New England to a 1-6 record?
It's a lot of points. Catching 8 points. Buffalo probably wins the game. I think New England can hang around. Buffalo really hasn't been that impressive this season. They've had a lot of letdowns, a lot of brain cramps along the way, a lot of issues on the defensive side of the ball. I think the Patriots with +8, I think they cover the spread.
The Patriots at Gillette are giving 8 points. I haven't seen that since the 90s.
A lot of points, man. That's a lot of points.
I mean, I can't believe what I'm hearing here. All right. Washington, who's 3-3 on the season, versus the the Giants. I think they're kind of the Giants now. I don't know. They're 1-5, and they got Mrs. Jones there at the quarterback position here.
Is he playing? I don't even think. Is he playing?
Is he playing?
He's questionable. I don't know. It doesn't make a difference.
I'm sure he's getting a pedicure. Remember something, Philly Godfather. There's a couple things men should never do. You never want to go to a boutique and have your feet touched by a guy named Billy. That's not going to work for me, dude. I mean, and these quarterbacks today, man, pedicures. Nobody touches men's feet, and that's what I see this guy here, Daniel Jones, too. Washington, New York, what do you think here?
I mean, it's a division game. The Giants are starving for a victory. Washington defense one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. The line's moving in the direction of the Commanders here, but anything over a field goal, I think it's a coin flip. Give me the Giants at home +3, 3.5. I think it's a coin flip. Both teams are bad this season.
Do you care about a game like Atlanta and Tampa?
Not really. Not really.
What do you make of the Bucks?
I mean, they've exceeded all expectations. It's still early in the season, but this, we talked about it before the season started. It's supposed to win 6 games on the year. We were talking about who's going to win the least amount of games. Was it going to be Arizona or Tampa Bay? And Tampa Bay surprises a lot of people. Shake and Bake has been playing better than most people think. But I think Atlanta's the better team. If I can get them at a field goal +3, line's 2.5. Opened up 1.5. If it gets to 3, I'll be on the Falcons here +3.
How about this game? This could be the second best game of the weekend here. Detroit at Baltimore. And I'll put this out there. You could probably make the conversation that Brock Purdy or Jared Goff have been playing the best quarterback of any quarterbacks in the NFC.
Yeah. I mean, it's reflective in their MVP odds as well. This is on top. They're expecting some high wins. And if the winds come in 20, 30-mile-an-hour winds, it's really going to hurt Detroit in their passing game. And it's going to help Lamar Jackson with the Ravens here. I think the number's spot on at 3. If the winds pick up, I'll probably look to play Baltimore. If they don't, by game time, I'll more than likely take the 3.5 on the lines.
I've been pretty surprised also with this team, the Rams, but I've also been surprised by Pittsburgh. I was expecting more from Pittsburgh, and it's in the Unholy Dome or whatever that thing is called, SoFi Stadium, where the Rams have no fans.
0.
I've never seen a beautiful stadium where you're not playing well there because you don't have a home fan base. It's really an ugly look there for the NFL when the Rams are playing, and crowd noise hurts them at home because the opposing team's fans.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to see a lot more Steelers fans come game day than
you bet.
It's going to be packed with Pittsburgh Steelers. You're getting over a field goal right now. Pittsburgh can bring the pressure. It's just offensively, they're so stagnant, man. They're one of the worst offensive teams in the league. In the red zone, offensively, they have trouble scoring. The Rams can still move the ball a little bit. If you get anything under a field goal, I think the Rams are the right side, even though the betting public's going to be all over the Rams. Probably about 80% of the public's going to be on LA here. That scares me a little bit because I never want to be on the same side as the public. Anytime that happens, I try and pause and reflect and really, dig through the game deep. I'm not running to bet this game, but anything under a field goal, I think the Rams are just a better team.
Arizona and Seattle, I mean, I don't really care about Arizona, but I care about Seattle because I'm trying to figure out if they're one of the elite teams in the NFC. Do you think they are, or are we still on the fence there with this team trying to figure out who they are?
I mean, I think they make the playoffs. They're a tier below the elite teams in the NFC on the NFC side. It's a lot of points they're giving up. They're giving up 8 points. And Arizona has been gritty this season. If it wasn't for turnovers last week, they would have covered the game last week. I think Arizona can stay within the number here. If I was going to bet Seattle, I'd try to get them in a 6-point teaser, tease them down to like -1 because I do think they win the game, and tie them in with maybe like the Giants at +10 or maybe the Chargers at like +12 or +13. So I would tie them into a teaser more than anything.
Green Bay, Jesus, this is another one. Green Bay at Denver. I mean, I'm really not sure I care about either of these teams too. It's like the shit bowl. I mean, Denver, could it be possible? Do you think he's back next year, even with all the money that they owe him, Russell Wilson? I mean, I don't know what they do with him. I don't know where they go with him. No one's picking that contract up. You can't trade him. He's untradeable. I mean, that Denver is – would you agree Denver's probably in the worst shape of any NFL team in the league?
They might be. You're right. I mean, they do have a great coach. So if anyone could turn it around, it's him. But with the quarterback situation like you're talking about, I mean, they got no money. All the money's going to him, and he's not producing. So they've given up 200 points so far in the season. That's the most in the AFC. I think it might be the most in the NFL. And they've always been a defensive squad, Denver. And to see, how things have changed and how bad that defense is, it's really shocking. The Packers, they were looking good until they got banged up a little bit going into that Thursday night game against the Lions. But I think they're back. They're healthy. And I think the Packers win this game. I think they cover the spread. It's a small spread. I think they're getting 1. They're laying 1. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I think the Packers, they get the job done here.
How about this one here? The Chargers are really a complex team for me because, I mean, I look at Herbert's numbers and I'm like, wow. And then you look at Herbert throwing grounders and not making complete passes. You know, when I watch him play sometimes, he plays 3/4 of exceptional football. And then there's one quarter where he just has a Carson Wentz moments. They're just all over the place. And it's the shitty coaching. They've got talent on that team. They just dropped one to Dallas and they were sloppy in that game. And now they got to go to Arrowhead. This is a big deal here, man, for the Chargers. If they want to be a playoff team, and don't you think Kansas City's got to kind of show you something?
Yeah, it's do or die here, right? They lose this, they're 2-4.
Yeah.
And they're in serious trouble because there's so many good teams in the AFC trying to make the playoffs. The Chiefs have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So if the Chargers run the ball in this game, they can stay within the number. Both the offenses are top 5 in the yards per play metric. So I can't see Kansas City pulling away unless you get a bunch of brain cramps from Brandon Staley going for it on 4th downs when he shouldn't. If you see some turnovers by the Chargers, well, then, it changes the whole dynamics of the game. But I think the Chargers can stay within the number here. If you're getting +6, I think this is a good spot for them coming off a loss. You're really buying low on this team after the whole world witnessed them losing to the Cowboys the previous week. And the Chiefs defense, when it comes to run defense, you can run the ball down their throats. So keep them off the field, run the ball, chew some clock, and stay within that Vegas number.
Does San Francisco rebound? And do you think this could potentially be the last game before the trading deadline, October 31st, for Kirk Cousins, that maybe Minnesota wants to kind of – because if they lose this ball game, got to feel that there's really not a lot of hope for them to make it to the postseason. And do you want to maybe try to get one of those first-round draft choices in next April's draft? I mean, this is really maybe a U-Haul game here for Minnesota, and it's got to be a rebound game for San Francisco. I hear they're getting McCaffrey back. I hear Trent Williams is playing. I don't know what the status on Kittle is, but I hear Debo's back too. So they're getting their star players back for this game.
Yeah, they're going to be back. But again, like I've always mentioned, anytime you play a tough defensive team like the Browns or even the 49ers, the next week, you never play on an optimum level. It was such a gritty, brutal game last week. You're laying a lot of points on the road, 7 points. Minnesota can still move the ball. They're still top 5 in yards per play metric offensively. Their problem is they can't stop turning the ball over all season. I mean, you saw what happened with the Eagles game. You saw what happened in a couple other games in the season. They're a turnover machine, one of the worst teams when it comes to the turnover differential in the NFL. 7 points is a lot of points after a big, tough, grueling game like that. I think the 49ers win. I'm not sure if they cover the number, but I would tease them down to basically a pick them and bet them that way.
2 college things for you here. Heisman race is starting to get into a position. And by the way, I have a vote. And so I want to hear what your opinion is right now. Michael Penix, Jordan Travis of FSU, J.J. McCarthy of Michigan, Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma, or Jaden Daniels, who's having really a great year, even though LSU is really not having a super year. They still have Bama on the horizon, which could put them in maybe more of a conversation. But of those 5 guys, and obviously Caleb Williams, who I didn't mention here, who had a bad game against Notre Dame, who's your favorite still to win this thing?
Well, as of right now, the Vegas favorite is Michael Penix at -130. But he still has 3 tough games left on his schedule with USC, I think Oregon State, and I forget the third team. But then you got
Utah, I think
Utah, yeah. So they still got 3 games left on their schedule where he can trip up. You got McCarthy, Mr. Sure and Steady, probably the best QBR in college football right now. And if they go 12-0 and Penix trips up, he could be in the conversation. Right now, you can grab 10-1 odds on McCarthy. Dylan Gabriel, he's down to 10-1 as well. And if you look at the opponent defenses he faces for the rest of the season, no one's going to have better numbers than he is. I mean, and I'm basically penciling him into the playoffs. Who's going to beat him? I mean, you look at their schedule, a bunch of teams with really bad defenses left, and he's probably going to end up with the best numbers of anyone. But as of right now, Michael Penix is the favorite. Williams from USC, he dropped all the way back to 20-1. He was the favorite for most of the season. He opened up the favorite at +500, +400. So now if you still think he can win it, you can grab a better number. But I think from a value standpoint, Gabriel at 10-1 is still a good bet. But Michael Penix, as long as he doesn't trip up, he probably wins the Heisman.
You think Deion Sanders in that Colorado program was like Haley's Comet? I mean, it came and went, or do you think still the best is yet to come? Because boy, that Stanford game really put a nasty taste in people because it was terrible coaching and coaching decisions that brought that team back. And it just seems now it's more about getting Shador Sanders the numbers. Did you hear what he said too? I thought this was kind of, it's the antithesis of what Jalen Hurts is. He says the reason that he doesn't throw incomplete or he doesn't throw the ball away is because he doesn't want to have negative plays so that when the scouts are looking at him, that because you know what? There's a point though, because his dad must have told him, you get drafted on numbers. You don't get really drafted on wins. You get drafted on numbers. And to me, that contradicts what the quarterback position is all about. Think about what he said. The better numbers he has, the better chance of him getting drafted at the expense of he would rather take a minus play than throw the ball away and take a positive play.
That doesn't sound good from a team effort.
I'm not drafting that. That's Jamarcus Russell stuff.
Yeah, that don't sound right. So that might hurt him. But the team, I mean, let's be honest, they exceeded all expectations. They're supposed to win 3 games on the season. They came out red hot. I think the media has as much to do with, now everyone, turning their heads on them because they were blowing up like they were going to win the national championship. And anyone with half a brain knew that wasn't going to happen. But so far, they've done a good job. They're a cute team. They're not one of the better teams in college football. And if they win 6 games on the season, I think it's a huge win for that college, for Colorado.
Oh, absolutely. They'll make it to the Liberty Bowl with a 6 wins when they shouldn't. They should be playing in the Fruit Loop Bowl, but instead they're going to be playing like in a Liberty Bowl or a Gator Bowl because of Deion and what he brings to the table with the paparazzi around him. Seriously, man, that guy should be playing in the Weeder.com Bowl, not in some sort of Liberty.
Marketer, he's a great marketer. You know that, Dan. And people want to watch, man. People want to watch.
I get it, man. All right, some games. Penn State at Ohio State. This is a big one here for James Franklin.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. And they haven't fared well against Ohio State. I think Ohio State's won 8 of the last 9 they've played. Ohio State always seems to have the better talent in recent memory. You got 2 solid coaches on that Penn State team, Manny Diaz and Franklin. 2 solid, great minds there. They've exceeded all expectations this year. They're 6-0, 6-0 against the spread. But going up to Ohio and winning that game, I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think they cover the spread either, man. It's going to be tough covering that number. I like the under in the game. I went under 23.5 in the first half. I think both teams have pretty good defenses. I'm hoping Penn State can go in there and win because I'm holding a Michigan ticket at 9-1 to win it all. So that'll help me a little bit. But I don't see it happening.
You think James Franklin has lived up to expectations in Happy Valley?
This year, yes. This year, I mean, the only thing that matters is what you do next, right? So, people have recency bias. They only remember, what's happened recently. So if he wins 10 games this year, they were supposed to win 9.5. That was the Vegas projected regular season win total. If he wins 10 or 11 games and he finds a way to either beat Ohio State or Michigan, absolutely, he's exceeded all expectations. And he's got a young quarterback. They're going to get better.
Tennessee, Bama in Tuscaloosa.
It's a lot of points, man. Both teams have underperformed. Tennessee's offense, not too shabby this year. Everyone thinks they're the same offense as last year. They're definitely not. Alabama's starting to catch their groove. 8.5, a lot of points. But Alabama needs to win down the stretch. They need style points. They need to blow some of these teams out. Not just win the game, but cover the spread and really do some damage because their name recognition is so strong. So if they come down the stretch and they're beating the crap out of everybody and some other teams fumble along the way, they can sneak in the playoffs still. So, and you can grab plus 400 on them to make the playoffs, 4-1 odds, which, it's a good number. Now, a lot of things have to happen. It's kind of like hitting a 5-team parlay for them to get in the college football playoffs. But stranger things have happened, and they do carry that name recognition. I think they win the game this week. They got a shot at covering the spread. I mean, if they don't cover the spread, they're going to have problems making the playoffs. So style points, I think they cover the number this week. I think I would lay 8 on Alabama.
They still got a shot here, and I'll tell you how. They beat LSU. They beat Auburn. They still have that kind of road there, but obviously Georgia's in the way there, especially on the east side. So, I mean, could they get in? I think it's really going to depend. In my opinion, it's going to depend on Washington
Yeah.
If Washington continues to win and they win out, you're going to want to see balance with the Final Four because it's been so regionalized, the Final Four, with all the teams in the East Coast and the time zone, and you're going to want to see some team from the West.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be SC. Utah at USC. I think Utah's a better team than Southern Cal.
I don't know, man. They've struggled against teams with good offenses. Their defense looks cute, but anytime they play a solid offensive team, I think they lost to Oregon State. That was the only team that ranked in the top 50 in the yards per play metric. And now you got a USC team that's one of the best in college football. Bounce back game. They're going to be upset. I don't think Utah can stay within the number. I think USC has too much firepower here. If you can lay 6.5 on USC, I think you get it done. But then, when you're talking about the college football playoffs, if Oklahoma wins out, how do you deny them? You got to pencil them in. It's going to be either Michigan or Ohio State, maybe Penn State if they find a way to win both those teams. And then you got Georgia with the softest schedule in college football. And like you said, I think it comes down to Washington. If they trip up, you can put Alabama in there. But if they don't, I think it's a done deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, I forget who did Alabama lose to earlier
Texas.
in the year?
Texas.
What? Texas. That's
Texas.
Right. They lost to Texas. And to me, this is all about what Washington's doing, because the way I see it, FSU, if they continue to win, Florida State's got to be one of those teams because they beat LSU and they beat Clemson this year. And they have to be considered. Then they would have to probably play Clemson again in the ACC title game, which would be another quality win for them. Do you put a team from the ACC or a one-loss Alabama team in the Final Four? I wonder if because there's a lot of negativity around something like that. And like you said, between Georgia and Michigan, I just don't see who they've played either. When BCS comes out, do you know that they're going to say Michigan is going to be the number one team in the country?
Yeah,
and I'm like, they've played Rutgers and people like that. They've played nobody. They played Vegas, I think UNLV and shit like that.
Yeah, they play some weak teams. But if you look at the Vegas odds right now, Michigan is the favorite to win the college football championship. They're at plus 270. Georgia's at plus 290. So the odds makers are giving them respect. And you can only play the teams that are in front of you, and they're beating the crap out of those teams. The problem with Alabama is they lost to Texas at home, and then Oklahoma beat Texas. So how do you put Alabama over Oklahoma? It's going to get very interesting. Florida State's beating everybody. They're 14.5-point favorites this week against a tough Duke team with a good defense. But I can't see Duke
at home.
Yeah, I can't see Duke scoring with them. They got issues on their offense. So yeah, it's going to get interesting down the stretch.
Remember something about Duke? I told you this. They make debate teams and bombs, and they have Bunsen burners. Florida State's a football program, right? Does my team have any shot against Clemson?
Man, they killed me the last 2 weeks. They turned the ball over 9 times. I bet on them 2 weeks in a row. Offensively, they're better. Defensively, they're better than Clemson, but the brain cramps, and they're so dysfunctional over the past 2 weeks.
Coaching.
It scares you to bet on them. You're getting 3 points here. The right side's Miami, but you might end up with the wrong result here. The right side's Miami, but I haven't bet them yet. I lost a ton of money the last 2 weeks betting on them. If they don't turn the ball over, they win both games. Let's be honest. It comes down to turnovers.
Still got the Cowboys in the Super Bowl?
Why not? Everything's going as planned. Do
you know if the Eagles lose Sunday, they're like now?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Listen, my plan was this. After 6 weeks, the Eagles would be 5-1. Their one loss would be to the Jets, but with Aaron Rodgers, not Zach Wilson. And I had the Cowboys at 4-2, but their loss would be to the Chargers and 49ers on the road instead of Arizona. But if you remember, they were missing 3 offensive linemen against Arizona, and they were missing a bunch of bodies. So if anything, so far the Cowboys, to me, have exceeded expectations being 4-2, The loss against San Francisco was ugly, but that happens to some of the best teams in the NFL during the season. Then you see them in the playoffs in a revenge game. They come back and they beat that team. So I think we're still sitting good. You got to remember, 16-1 odds. It's not like we laid even money on the Cowboys to win it all or to win the division. And at some point within the next 8 weeks, the Cowboys will be the favorite to win the NFC East because they're scheduled a lot easier over the next 6 to 8 weeks than the Eagles are. The Eagles are playing one of the toughest schedules in the next 8 weeks.
Niners, Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs.
Cowboys twice. They're playing the Commanders, which is a division game. They're playing 6 teams with better point differentials than the Eagles are in the next 8 weeks. They'll be lucky to go 4-4. They'll be lucky to go 4. They have to go 4-4 because the Cowboys might end up a game or 2 ahead of them going down the stretch. And then the Eagles finish up with 2 division games against the Giants and 1 against Arizona that they should win. But as we all know, these division games are always wacky. The Cowboys, the schedule at the end gets a little tougher for them. But I think we're sitting in a good spot, especially with the price that we got at 2-1, at 16-1. Anytime you're getting plus money like that, you're hoping the other team, the ball doesn't bounce their way or they get a little banged up and you just slide right in there.
Reeling them in. Hey, tell the folks where they can get a hold of you, my friend.
You can follow me on Twitter at Philly Godfather. You can stop by the PhillyGodfather.com. And I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm a money fan. But when you're giving you 16-1 on a team that's almost as good as the Birds, all I need is a couple guys getting banged up like Lane Johnson or Jalen Carter, and the Cowboys are going to sneak in there.
Reeling them in. Thank you, Philly Godfather. Thank you, brother.
I'll talk to you. Have a good one.
I appreciate it, my good friend. Thank you so much. That's our friend, Philly Godfather. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.